Blizzard just announced the 20th anniversary Vanilla Fresh progression servers that will even be moving on to TBC, and everywhere I look, this seems to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, announcements to come out of Warcraft Direct. And it really is such a testament to the game that amongst retail WoW, Season of Discovery, Cataclysm Classic, Plunderstorm, and everything else Blizzard has going on, Vanilla WoW stands the test of time. Now, there's a lot of reasons why this news is so big and such a big deal to so many people, and I want to talk about all of them, but for today, I just want to give the game itself a moment to shine and bask in its own glory. There's a lot to be said about how the timing of this announcement plays a factor into the hype, the way SOD's released and its letdowns, or the lack of hype around Kata and Mop coming back. But Vanilla WoW has its own secret weapon that is almost immediately lost when TBC is released, and it's the reason we think about it 20 years later and why we degenerate every time it comes back around. It's all about the green text. So what do I mean by that? Every version of WoW has green text. We have tier sets and weapons and the numbers and look how big. Nothing, not even close to what we see in vanilla. The game is full to the brim with items ranging from strange to cool to useless to overpowered to PvP broken. To start my point, I'll give one of the earliest examples of vanilla's green text that you see in the game, quest rewards. Before there's stats on your gear or crit on your gloves, there's these wacky little items that for some reason are completely broken and will be used for the rest of your experience. And some of these items are available very early in the game. The Sack of Marbles is the best example. A level 5 quest reward that decreases your target's hit chance by 25%. What it doesn't say is a level cap for the mobs it can be used on, and that's because there isn't one. This reward is a massive strategy for fighting hard-hitting bosses like Patchwork and Naxxramas, and a must-have for progression, speedrunning, or even pugs. This is the perfect example to illustrate my point for today. While it's obvious and well known, it's uniquely vanilla. There's loads of examples just like this. The fish silver oil from the quest in Goldshire rewards a haste bonus in only 10 charges, but for most classes, a haste bonus this great isn't seen again until Naxxramas. The Light of a Loon is a quest reward and a one-time use item that gives you a Paladin's Bubble, and hardcore players roll Alliance for a lot of reasons, but this is one of them. It can be a great thing to save yourself in a raid, or even in PvP. Horde gets super sticky glue from a quest at level 5. It works on any level mob in the game and roots them in place. There's the Poisonous Mushroom, just a little white item you loot on a quest in the Hinterlands with some very powerful green text. Use, don't eat me. Well, eating this mushroom gives the caster a poisonous debuff that does 10 damage every 5 seconds for 30 seconds. In other words, it breaks polymorphs, saps, and sleeps. The Fiery Blaze enchant is a unique quest reward in that you can only get this enchant once per character, and it's the only enchant quest that can be done at level 35. While this enchant doesn't seem like much when you take a look at its green text, pair it with the green text from the Ravager and the AoE damage is astonishing and compounding. Even in early game vanilla and in later expansions, every time this enchant procs, it hits everything in melee range, and so does the Ravager, making the combo extremely powerful for AoE tanking dungeons or even carries later in the game. We would use this weapon combo a ton during Season of Discovery in Omergon because the trash had such large health. The warriors, the paladins, even the hunters, we would all throw on our Fiery Blaze Ravagers, and the numbers were astounding. There's gear quest rewards too, like the Skull of Impending Doom that can break CCs and give you a speed boost, the Loofah Trinket for classes that can't cleanse poisons, the Rod of Transformation that turns you into a Furbolg. It just looks like a paladin casting Holy Light, and it's a funny item to use in PvP to blow the enemy's kick cooldown so you can get a full heal off later. I could list these off all day, but this is only the surface of the green text. These are just the silly, fun things that make the game unique, but what really keeps us all coming back is the green text on the gear. I think weapons are the perfect place to start because vanilla has so many weapons with each phase of the game. From doing extra damage, weakening your opponent, or a chance to CC, vanilla has some of the most iconic weapons in the history of WoW. Molten Core is the first raid in the game, and it stays relevant all the way through, and it's because it holds the keys to items with the sweetest green text around. Thunder Fury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker, and Hand of Ragnaros himself. Both legendary items need to be crafted from items dropped in Molten Core, but have green text effects that make them worth having throughout the entire game. Thunder Fury, often considered the best tanking weapon, and it's always paired with another weapon from the current raid tier all the way into Nax. And if rogues get their hands on this thing, it can take their PvP game from a class that gets dunked on by a paladin to a class that controls the tempo and causes nothing but chaos for any of their opponents. Then there's the Hand of Rag, the fire god's gift to the paladins. It's the only class in the game that has no damage over time effect to keep their opponents from eating and drinking in combat. Getting one of these can take your game to a whole new direction, and the ladies love it. Molten Core also has the Bone Reaver's Edge, another sweet two-handed weapon with great armor penetration proc on it. In the early days of vanilla, when hit gear is hard to find, even Horde warriors will forego dual wielding if they can get their hands on a two-hander as good as this. That combined with Wind Fury, and this thing is completely viable in PvE. But that's just the beginning of weapons in vanilla. Every raid tier brings more and more interesting green text to the table. The BW Well weapon, the Untamed Blade, has the Crusader's enchant built right into it. Kalimdor's Revenge has a chain lightning effect and can even proc from ranged weapon damage spells like a Paladin's Judgment. Dark Edge of Insanity has built-in CC, similar to a Rogue's Blind, but it can't be broken by damage and is often considered to be one of the best weapons for dueling in vanilla WoW, rivaling even the Might of Menethil, which brings me to my next bit of green text that I want to cover, 2% crit. One of the most glorious things about vanilla WoW is its percent-based statistics. Buffs and abilities might increase our stats by large percentages, and we feel every one of them, but our gear is most often 1% to our hit or crit, 1% to parry, 1% to dodge. 1% is the most common green text outside of power, and we stack up every piece to try and have the best odds we can. It's plain English, we can all feel each percent, and it's only in vanilla WoW. It's not just a rating or just another number that gets bigger and bigger. It stops at a certain point, and that point is 2%. Doesn't get any sweeter than getting one of the rarely programmed 2% pieces of gear in the game. Sure, every warrior gets a Lionheart helm, but that's just the barrier to entry in the 2% game. Now, a Savage Gladiator chain, that's something you can farm. That's something you can sink your teeth into. A 2% piece you can earn. Not just anything had it, especially before Naxxramas. With the gear at its wonkiest and the game at its most fun, if you could get your feet into the 2% club, you were pushing the numbers. You had the thing that not everyone had, and it feels good. And this feeling is 100% uniquely vanilla. When TBC switches to the rating system, 2% club gone forever. And some TBC gear probably even goes past 2% on a level 70 character, but you have to have an add-on to know it. It does something to the player. It starts the numbers go bigger treadmill that retail is so famous for. It puts space in the relationship. There's a disconnect between the player and the character. Don't care why, I just need this number big. And I'm not saying it didn't have to change. If you expand the game by 10 levels, the percent system doesn't work anymore. You can't just say the new best gear in the game will be 3% crit, because when would it end? If you don't have a 100% crit chance, then you're not playing right. When every strike is a critical strike, then no strikes are critical strike. That's why 2% would always be the highest. Blizzard had to create an illusion to make the player feel like his crit was still increasing, when really he was just upgrading to get back the power he had when he was at level 60. It had to end, but it was white hot electric while it lasted. Vanilla has by far the most consumables, buffs, and one-time use items than any other version of the game. It's known for it, and it's literally crazy what you can do in PvP if you use every cooldown like your life depends on it. There's far too many to just list here, so just enjoy the rant. Every player has a potion cooldown, an engineering or use item cooldown, an offensive trinket cooldown, and a defensive trinket cooldown. And there's certain items that play by those rules and some that don't. The Whipperroot Tuber is a farm consumable that doesn't require herbalism to gather. On use, it heals you for 600 and 900 health and can even crit. It also doesn't share cooldown with health potion and can be macroed to be used at the same time. Even with the massive health pool of a warrior, if your potion and tuber both crit, it can be an insane instant heal. What's interesting about Whipperroot tubers is that they share the same cooldown as Lock Rocks, and there's a lot of farm consumables in the game that mimic class exclusive abilities. Free action potions are like an improved version of Blessing of Freedom. Dream Dust that's farmed in Westfall mimics a sleep or a paladin's repentance. Dark runes mimic a warlock's life tap. Jungle remedy mimics cleanse. Poison mushroom mimics blessing of sacrifice. Limited invulnerability potions mimic blessing of protection. Crystal restores farmed in Angoro crater mimic a druid's heal over time. And there's even more out there. You can farm explosive crystals in Angoro crater too if you don't have engineering. There's Juju mites and firewater to farm in Winterfall. There's Night Dragon's breath that's like a restorative potion in Fellwood. There's Royd's lung juice cocktail and Cortex compounds and more to be farmed in Blasted Lands that are all powerful raid buffs. All of these these are consumable and all of them farmable by any player regardless of profession. And it's why the end game zones feel so alive in vanilla. We all have shit to do out there. It makes the game feel bigger. If you've ever heard someone say vanilla WoW is by far the biggest version of the game, this is why. This laundry list we didn't even tap into, like the crazy engineering items we can make, the endless trinkets, summons, offhands, rep rewards, all of them that do things only seen in vanilla and also only work in vanilla. That discombobulator ray doesn't work on a level 70 target in TBC. The Furball medicine pouch doesn't do much for someone with 25,000 health. Hand of Justice doesn't work on targets above level 60, and Tidal Charm doesn't stun anymore. A lot of things no longer mattered, didn't work, or made obsolete after vanilla, and yes, there's plenty of engineered items and toys that come out along the way through the expansions, but it's nothing like what we get to see in vanilla all at the same time. And I think that's a good thing. It keeps the original special. It makes the game unique, and it preserves a certain flavor of fun that you can only find in one place, and that's why we keep coming back to it. Retail expansions come and go, and we enjoy them or we don't, but one thing always creeps back into my mind whenever I play them. I still need to get my Might of Menethil in vanilla WoW. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you out there.